Yo, guys, listen up. Let me share my Bronx tale coming up. Hello, everyone. My name is James Suniga, and this is my podcast, the James Suniga Podcast, second episode. Let's begin. This video is about me becoming a Bronx. Coming from the Bronx. And for those who've been there, or for those who's wondering or planning to visit the Bronx, let me have some of your time to explain about the Bronx and the history about it, and what was like in my childhood as well. So let's begin. So I grew up in the Bronx, which is one of the borough from the NYC, New York City. And yes, many people know about the Bronx, believe it or not. Even if you go like overseas or the different states, and people ask you, where you're from, and you tell them when you're from, if you tell them that you're from the Bronx, a lot of people, they light up their eyes and they'd be like, oh, like they'd be by surprise because um, when someone knows that you from the Bronx, they don't automatically think about like gangsters, or like if you're a rapper or drug dealer. Like they see you like you're like a type of a celebrity, and then they start asking you like a million questions about the Bronx. So for many, the Bronx is viewed as a bad place. And the most notorious time was like during the 80s, when the war on drugs came through to the US, and the crack epidemic flooded in the New York City, especially the Bronx. Um, so that started to paint the Bronx as a bad place. And that's because the Bronx has a long history of crimes and violence. The crime and violence are due to poverty, and lack of opportunity in many parts of the borough. And the Bronx also has a large number of gangs and drug dealers who operates in the area. In reality, living and growing up there for many years, I've never see it so bad. Like I will be exposed and I will see certain things that is considered as bad, but it wasn't as bad. Okay, so from the loud merengue music coming from the local bodegas to the Hindu spot where you are listening to the Bollywood movies and music. There's so much to do, and this is just a small neighborhood. So if you ask me where I'm from, if people ask me where I'm from, I'm always gonna tell them in the New York Minute I'm from the Bronx. All right, because Bronx has this how can I say, this model, this mentality that if you can make it in the Bronx, then you can make it everywhere. And that is true. And the reason that, we believe that is because when you from the Bronx, you are exposed to so much that is impossible not to learn from all these chaos and how to live. So looking back, I was actually a very, I had a very good childhood. Okay. Um, I learned a lot when I was there. So if you ever think about moving into the Bronx, just be aware that there are some things that you need to learn about the Bronx. And in this episode, I'll be happy to explain. Okay. So the Bronx. Let's talk about the Bronx history. When it comes to the Bronx, the history and culture are very rich. It's like very rich and deep. Okay. And it's true. They call it the melting pot community. You know, of the 1.4 million people who live there, nearly a third of its residents were born outside of the United States, bringing them the stories, lifestyles, and cultural expressions that have set the Bronx up to be a place like no other. Okay, you will find incredible staples of New York City's life, like the Yankee Stadium to the Bronx Zoo. but also a niche of art collective, museums, and community spaces dedicated to fostering the Bronx unique eye on the world. You know, if you ever want to visit the Bronx or New York, I recommend you to rent a charter bus, and go to the Bronx and go ahead and try all these places that I mentioned, because this is like the cultural staple that makes New York City a borough sing. Okay, you know the Yankee Stadium. The Bronx is notorious for the Yankee Stadium. It's a top spot of any sport, fans trip to New York City. So when you visit the Yankee Stadium, you're gonna visit an immense cultural icon in New York City in the Bronx. You know, and I'm not talking about the new Yankee Stadium that they rebuilt back in 2009. I'm talking about like the first Yankee Stadium that was built like in 1923. You know, incorporated some replicated designs, elements for the original Yankee Stadium, and is currently home of the MLB, New York Yankees, as well as the Major League Soccer team, the New York City FC, and for cultural experience, you're gonna enjoy, these classic games. Like you're gonna enjoy being in the stadium. It's trust me, it's worth it to go there and experience it, because you will get to visit the museum, the Monument Park, the team dugout, and also if you have options to lunch, you can also visit, their next door, the Hard Rock Cafe as well. That's pretty much notorious to it, linked to the Yankee Stadium. Okay, now the Bronx is also notorious for the Bronx Museums and Art. So, like, if you're looking for a unique collection of contemporary art in the New York City, look no further than the Bronx Museum of the Arts. Okay, they have collection that includes more than 2,000 works. That began in the 1986 with works on paper by artists of Africa, Asian, Latin America ancestry to reflect the borough's diversity, because the Bronx is diverse and diversity is good. And then you have the New York Botanical Garden. Okay, the New York Botanical Garden is a major NYC culture hotspot founded in the Bronx. It's great to visit for all 4 seasons. You can explore beautiful gardens and landscapes while learning about plants research and conservation across more than 250 acres. When you visit there, you can enjoy the historical collection of maple trees from around the world, the Peggy Rockefeller Rose Garden, and the conifer, arboretum, which is one of the oldest collections in the garden. So, and if you were already in the Bronx, I know that during your school, year, your class will always make a field trip to go to the Botanic Garden, and I recommend you guys to go there. It's really, really a cultural experience, and you're gonna like it. Then you got the Edgar Allan Poe Cottage. We also have that in the Bronx as well. The Edgar Allan Poe Cottage is a historical preserve, final home of the famous American poet and author. It is said that he wrote his famous poem and story like The Bells, Eureka, and the Annabelle Lee within his walls. And it's a must visit, for anybody who's a bookworm or a lover for literature, groups visiting. You can go there and enjoy even an audio tour of the history of the property. And today, that cottage, has been restored and included furnishing from when Edgar Allan Poe lived there in the 1840s, including the rocking chair that is believed to have belonged to the family as well. Then you got the Bronx Zoo. Believe it or not, um, the Bronx Zoo, when it comes to like the Bronx Zoo, like the zoo industry, the Bronx Zoo was the first one in the United States. It's very famous. It's one of the largest zoo in the United States. It has 265 acres of animal exhibits and experience. It opened in November 8th in 1889 as a wildlife, conservation society flagship park, and today is home to more than 6,000 animals across 700 species. You got some animal exhibit like that includes like Madagascar, home to lemur, Nile crocodiles, and other animals native to the island of the Madagascar jungle world and the Congo gorilla forest. So if you ever go to the Bronx, I recommend you as well to go to the Bronx Zoo. Is especially during during the months between November through January. They also have these holiday lights. It's like the lights that displays across the whole zoo that takes place annually between November, between November through January. Okay, so you got the Yankee Stadium, you got the museum arts, the history of it, the botanical garden, the Edgar Allan Poe Cottage and the Bronx Zoo. So despite what you hear or what you might witness, the Bronx is not like fully bad place. There's sceneries there that you can visit, and these spots that I mentioned, they are safety spots. They're safe. They are places that you can go and tour and visit, whether you from the Bronx or not from the Bronx. Okay, now let me take you back about the Bronx, the word Bronx, Bronx, Bronx. Okay, the Bronx was named after a European settler, um, born immigrant from Sweden that arrived in New Netherlands during the spring of 1639, and his name was Jonas Bronck. It's Bronck, Bronck. That's his last name. Okay, and he became the first recorded European settler in the present day Bronx and built a farm named Emus. A close, which is now close to what is now the corner of Willis Avenue and 132nd Street in Mount Haven. From there he leased land from the Dutch West Indian Company on the neck of the mainland, immediately north of the Dutch settlement in New Harlem, which is on the Manhattan Island. And he bought additional tracts, from the local tribes. And he eventually accumulated 500 acres between the Harlem River and the Agwahunk, which was a tribe, from the Native American, and that's how it became known as Bronx River, but now it's Bronx River. Okay, Dutch and English settler referred to the area as Bronx land. Okay, and there's been documents that he has some relatives. Like he has a American poet, William Bronx, who was a descendant of a Bronx. Is either a son or younger brother. or it could be like a nephew or cousin, but the much work of the Swedish claim has been undertaken by Brian G. Anderson, which was the former commissioner of the New York City Department of Records, who helped organize a 375th anniversary celebration in Bronx hometown in 2014. So his last name is spelled Bronck, Bronx. So the Bronx was named after his last name. Okay, so that's how um, Bronx, became. That's the original, the born of the Bronx. All right, so there you go. Now, there's a lot more to talk about the Bronx, and being living in the Bronx, you're going to experience, culturally diverse neighborhoods abound. Okay, the Bronx borough of the New York City features an array of neighborhood options, parks, and attractions that make it an address and demand among home buyers today. And believe it or not, people, from all over, from all over the states or from out of the country or like, New Yorkers, they will go to the Bronx and, buy homes as well. You know, from the famed Bronx Zoo to his venerable New York Yankees, the Bronx provides residents with a choice of plenty for entertainment. As I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of entertainments, there's a lot of shopping and culture. So when you're looking for a new home, you're going to discover that living in the Bronx has a lot to consider, and you're not going to focus on the bad stuff of the negative stuff, and I in this reality, you got to take the good with the bad or the bad with the good, negative and positive, good and evil, it's always the two sides. So it doesn't matter where you go, there's gonna be some bad side out of it. So in a way, I am defending the Bronx because the Bronx is just not, all bad and violence and stuff like that. There's places that you can go and it's livable as well. It's livable. The culture in the Bronx, it offers a lively mix of cultural richness that represents its history as a destination for immigrants to the United States. Okay, the borough is a home to a number of colleges and university. One of the most notably, university is called the Fordham University, and during my school year, during my high school, I wanted to go to the Fordham University. It was two choice. It was either that college or the Lehman College. But to get into the Fordham University, you gotta score high on your SATs. The A you gotta you gotta score high to get there because not every student can be accepted at the University of Fordham. It's a high standard. It's just like Harvard and Yale. So we have a Harvard and Yale in the Bronx, but it's called the Fordham University. And then you have the Albert Einstein College of Medicine as well, and there's several largest medical center and hospital in the Bronx. Okay, that are good. And for those who are interested in sports, nature, or entertainment, there are numbers of opportunity for residents. The famed Bronx Bombers, which is the New York Yankees, play 81 home games a year in the Yankee Stadium. I know I did my calculation because I'm a Yankees fan, and I'm also a Mets fan too. Okay, and then the Harlem River, the Long Island Sound, the Maritime Pursuit Ways, the museum, Bronx Zoo, like Botanical Garden. Once again, it is in the Bronx River too. It's these places is what keeps the Bronx like on their, on his toes, pretty much, you know. And besides hip hop, the Bronx, is the birthplace of hip hop as well, and the breakdancing as well. Especially in the neighborhoods and the nightclubs. So there is several, you know, culture, that represent the Bronx is even the theaters as well. If you ever went to the theaters, or if you want to go to the theater, go to the theaters in the Bronx, okay? The Broadway, pretty much. And then not only is cultural, living, but then the culture of food as well. The culture and foods. Like if you're looking for like an authentic Italian food, you can't do much better than any restaurant or bakery in the Bronx, because, there's a little town in the Bronx called Little Italy, which is like around the Fordham Road and also on Arthur Avenue. And believe it or not, that was the first neighborhood that I started to grow. After I got out of the hospital, my parents used to live in that area, so I've been exposed to, the culture of Italian, and and nowadays they're a little bit disappointed because now it's more diverse. But they will tell you that back in the '60s, it was just mainly Italian, like Italian owned that town. But now it's not like that, you know. Like the Italian food, like the bakeries, the cannolis, the pasta, pizza as well. The pizzas in New York, period, is notorious for that as well. You can go anywhere in the corner, and you guarantee you'll be worth it to spend money on some good slice of pizzas. Okay, what else? So you got that, and then you got the Chinese. There's a place called Chinatown. When you go and you walk around Chinatown, it makes you feel like you're not even in New York. Like you feel like you're like in Hong Kong, like you're in some country, because from left to right, all you see is Chinese people. It's just the same thing with the Little Italy, on Arthur Avenue. From left to right, you will see Italian. So it's cool. It's really cool. With dozens of neighborhoods and easy access to the rest of the New York City, the Bronx has something for everyone. Regardless, the Bronx has always got something to offer. Okay, hence that's why, New York City is known for people. It's the city that people don't sleep. You could be out there at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and you will see people just doing things. Shopping, going places, taking pictures. There's just socializing as in what you are normally to see that during the day, because the Bronx always has something to offer. All right, and then you know the Bronx is famous for a movie, and I think you know where I'm coming at. Let me show you the Bronx Tale. This is a good movie as well. Okay, the Bronx also um, is notorious for the story of the Bronx Tale, and I recommend you guys to go and get it. It was directed by Robert De Niro. It has all the good actors that are like Italians. It was actually the movie was made in the Bronx as well. Okay, and if you guys know what I'm talking about, I'm good. But for those who don't know, it's pretty much a story about like in the '60s, with the Italians. Okay, you know, Robert De Niro, he plays a character named Lorenzo. He worked at the MTA bus driver, which MTA, is still going. That's what we have for transportation as well. Okay, like the buses and the subway train, it is through MTA. So he drives an MTA bus in Belmont, and Belmont is right next to Arthur Avenue and the Fordham Road. So you see what I'm saying? It's a little Italian, neighborhood in the '60s. And he was like a working Italian American neighborhood in the Bronx, and with his wife and their 9-year-old son, which I'm going to pronounce his name is Kojiro, you know. And this little boy, this 9-year-old Kojiro, he becomes enamored, like he becomes like how can I say it? Enamored with the criminal's life and mafia presence in the neighborhood, led by Sonny, which Sonny Chas Palmentieri, he plays that character, Sonny. All right. So one day, Kojiro witnessed Sonny shooting and killing a man assaulted his friend in the neighborhood. And when Kojiro he chose to be quiet. He didn't snitch. Okay. Um, he didn't say anything when the NYPD questioned. Okay, the detectives questioned, and Sonny takes a liking to him and gives him his nickname as C. Okay, so Sonny Mans offer Lorenzo a better paying job, but preferring a law abiding life as a bus driver, he politely declines it. Okay, but and then of course Sonny befriends him as well. Uh, but Sonny and Coldrell, started to begin a relationship. So even though Coldrell had a working father at home, he also had like another father in the street. So he will have how can I say, he will have like a book smart dad and a street dad, both. He had the both worlds and both knowledge that he gains from. Okay, and he introduced him, the kid to the crew. He started earning tips from working in Sonny's bar, throwing dice. And his father Lorenzo finds out about the amount of cash that he had, and he found out that his 9-year-old son was working for Sonny, and he didn't like that. But cultural, he it didn't stop them. He wanted, to be with Sonny. He wanted to build a relationship. He was learning a lot of, knowledge from him, and he was being taught between, you know, being a good man, being a bad man, like being tough. Okay, and during the '60s in the Italian neighborhood, they were, they had issues with the African Americans, and the '60s was in the era where racism between blacks was around. I'm talking about like the era of Martin Luther King, with the civil rights and all that. So that was still going in the '60s, and Coldwell was a different person. He didn't see it like that. He actually falls in love with an African American woman, and he stopped hanging out with his childhood friends because he witnessed how his friends would treat African Americans when they see them walking in the street or riding their bike, and one of those kids that his friends go ahead and attacks was actually related to the girlfriend that he was dating, which was an African American. And he goes to Sonny as advice, and Sonny doesn't do anything. Let me tell you something. There's one piece that I remember this, and it's a knowledge. So he tells Sonny about this girl, you know, and she's different, and Sonny don't care. Sonny tells him, do you like her? And Coldrell, says, yeah. Okay, then, Sonny says, okay, then what's the problem? So then he goes and spit knowledge to him about the door test. Pretty much is when you go pick up a girl, okay, all right, and you open the door for her so she could go in. If she doesn't reach to the other side of the door and unlocks the door for you, she's not the one. That was the Sonny's knowledge, and believe it or not, I experienced that in real life because it was just like, wow, this is like so true. But the girl that he was with actually ends up doing that, okay, and it just ends. It ends just like that, like it ends just like that, and it also ends where Sonny, gets shot. Because not only, when you're like in the mafia or a crime organization, you're always gonna have beef, with some other mafia group and stuff like that. And it really ended sad for for C for cultural. But at the end, it's just one of those experiences. It's just one of those times that he goes through, and he that was his OG from the street. That was his, like, one of those street guys that, even though he is known for doing bad things, he was really a nice guy. So I recommend you guys to go ahead and get that movie, buy the movie, or rent it out. You can go on YouTube and search it and rent it or own it. It's a good movie. It's The Bronx Tale. All right. So growing up in the Bronx, I had some survivor lessons as well. Okay, because now that I talked about the good things of what the Bronx has to offer, I think I need to share about some, some survival tips. Live in the Bronx, because, like I said, it was is bad, but it wasn't as bad. But you still gotta watch your back when you're like in the Bronx, or or live in the Bronx. Okay, um, I learned that noise will no longer bother you, and this is like traffics. I'm not trying to exaggerate, or I'm not trying to be like, I'm not trying to scare you guys, but this is the truth. This is what happens in the Bronx. Okay, um, you will hear the buses, you will hear the train on the track, you will hear people yelling, you will hear bottle cracking, you will hear gunshots. Like, you will hear that. And if you're from the Bronx originally, that just becomes a normal thing. It just becomes a normalization. So the noise, it didn't bother me. Okay. um the bodegas can also be a drug spot. So, like, while you get your bearings, the bodegas is a Spanish term, that we use in NYC, which is a corner store or drive-through store. And the corner store is where most of the neighborhood people will go and buy little quick things like milk, cigarette, etc. But at times, some bodegas tend to be a front to sell drugs as well. And in some places, you can buy weed, you can buy coke, or whatever they're selling at the time. And remember, not all bodegas have this, and they will usually need to get to know you before anything. Anything you may find the occasional slot machine or poker machine with some old toothless old lady spending her social security check, while chain smoking. You will see that. But if you keep going regularly to the bodega, and you see the people hanging around in the neighborhood, they will not bother you. They will not bother you unless you do something to give them a reason. Okay. Also, I learned in the Bronx not to be flashy. Okay, this is still an issue. All right, especially with the tragic that happened in 2018. Okay, but this is still going on, and I also experienced it a couple of times. Um, and I do not understand why they do this in the streets in the Bronx. Okay, if you look like money, if you smell like money, they will come around and they will jump you for your sneakers, for your gold, phone, even your car as well. And the best thing to do when you get in a situation like that, you don't fight it. You just let them rob you. Because most likely, most a lot of time they will be harmed. Okay, armed. Okay, so if you get to a situation like that, just give them what they ask for, and you be out your way. All right. Okay. And then I learned also, the loud neighbors as well. Um, to the point where cops be rolling in, and and they hear a complain. It's just that noise is part of living in the city, and at times you will hear loud music, party all night, like loud, especially during the holidays, um, especially in the projects too, during the holidays and the projects building, you will you will have people with their windows open, and you would just hear everything. Like I was living in the projects as well, and I would just hear everything. You know, people hanging out in the elevators, people hanging out in the staircase, inside the staircase. People hanging out in the hallways. The hallways where your apartment is located, and chain smoking weed, drinking, graffitis, and all that, and they will just hang out, and they will be very loud. So that's one of the things that I learned, surviving the Bronx as well. And then also will become friends with local dealers and hoodlums as well. So like if you live in the Bronx for a while, you will get to know who's in the neighborhood, and at times you will even talk, to them. You can, if they say what's up, you say what's up. It's just the life there. And with so many people, you're gonna come across those who work or do crime, just to live in the city. And I'm not saying that it's right, but it is what it is. They gotta do what they gotta do, and we just gotta accept the truth. As long you're not in their way, as long you're not in their work area, you'll be fine. Okay, so and then also the gypsy cabs, the yellow cabs, that's also notorious as well. So if you're not a New Yorker, you if you never roll a gypsy cab, you know, a gypsy cab is a taxi pretty much that does not belong to any taxi company kind. It's not like a Uber or Lyft. These cabs are usually not for those overpriced yellow cabs. Like you will see them a lot in the Bronx. You will see them a lot in the city. All right, and how you I don't know how this possible, but if you could be in the corner of the street and you could be doing this, like with the peace sign doing this, and from whatever they at, they see that and they stop for you, and there's your cab right there, And then and also in the Hispanic community, they you got these cab driver also, and they drive the Lincoln car as well. You do the same thing. You do the same thing. The only difference is that with a gypsy cab, you get a cab right away. With a Hispanic cab, a taxi cab, the Lincoln cab, you gotta wait for a couple minutes. You gotta wait, and then when you get one, and you tell them the direction, you're technically giving them the direction. So that's something that I learned too. You know, if you're from the Bronx, I know that you have learned how to hop on the train as well. Sometimes money is tight. The high cost of transportation systems. Sometimes you just need to hop over the turnstile, and the turnstile, and Hope that there's no transit police to come and get you, And I used to do this a lot too. I used to do this a lot on the transportation bus as well, because in the bus, the MTA bus, it has two doors. You got the entrance, the first door where you go in and you enter, and then the back door is where people are. That's like another way to get out the bus, and everybody knows this. So if you don't got no MTA card, or if you don't got no change, nothing to get on the bus, and people are coming out that back door, and you got the opportunity to go hop in, you go hop in, and you will never get caught. Just you will never get caught hopping in the back of the door, because it's so crowded and the bus driver cannot see on his mirror, what's going on in the back. And then when it comes to the subway train too, if there's no transit police, just hop over and get on your next train. So also, if you're in the Bronx, you will walk everywhere. The good thing about living in the Bronx is that everything you need tends to be walking distance. Okay, if you need to go to grocery shopping, it's usually walking distance. Chinese food is down the block. If you need to do laundry, it's down the block. If you need to smoke some bud, you know, you know, it's also down the block. It's on the block. So having a car is really not necessarily, and it's a waste of time if you live in a neighborhood that everything is just around the corner. It's a walking distance. Okay, the food from the Chinese restaurant is excellent as well. You know, and also you don't need to have a bank account to cash your check. If you live in the Bronx, you will notice a ton of check cashing places where you can get your cash without depositing a bank account. It's not a good idea to use this as a better to have an account. So yeah, so you don't need uh, a bank account as well. You don't need that. And then, if you are driving and you have a vehicle, the parking is horrendous. It is difficult to find a park. All right, that's also one of the things. You'll be circling around the neighborhood, around the block, just to find a parking. And then the way they do the parking, it's a double parking. So that's a headache. And then if you're driving too, even driving through the city is also horrendous. People be copping an attitude. They just listen. I tell you what, we New York people, they don't know how to drive. Okay, I'm sorry, and I'm from the Bronx too. The only difference is I didn't learn how to drive in the Bronx, but the last time I went to New York and I noticed how people were driving, it's just like I wouldn't drive. I would just take the transportation. So this is what I'm just preparing you, so that way you know what to expect if you ever come down to the Bronx. All right. So that's pretty much what it is. Now, there are some 30 things people from the Bronx have to explain out of towners. Okay, this is for the people who's not from the Bronx. Okay, so there's 30 things. Number one, there's only one rule in the Bronx. You never call it New York. And the second rule about the Bronx is you never call it New York. It's the Bronx, period. All right. Number two, and it's the real guts of New York City. So make no mistake about it. Manhattan is Wall Street. Brooklyn is for the artists and the yuppies, but the Bronx is for the real folks. All right. Number three, that's why they're the Bronx. Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, Staten Island. You notice how the Bronx is the only one that gets the introduction. So there's no accident there. Number four, but you can call it the BX for short. No, BX doesn't shorten a syllable of the Bronx at all, but it fits so much better on a hat. So it's kind of like when Christina Aguilera, becomes Xtina, right? But except the BX is cooler than that. Number five, there's only one one team in baseball, and that team is the Yankees. Everybody is a Yankees fan. All right. That's the only team that represents the Bronx. Number six, in the best stadium in the world. Yes, the Yankee Stadium is the best stadium in the world. Number seven, don't argue with the bleacher creatures. And pretty much the bleacher creatures are Yankees fans who have no more than likely tried to sell their soul just to see the Yankees get through their division. More than once. And trust me, I used to scream, I used to swear, I used to cheer, I bull, and the more, but at the end you get disappointed. So the more you get disappointed, the more you be like, whatever. If they make it to the playoffs, which they always do, I don't be like all hyped up. I just be like, oh, okay, they made it to the World Series. Okay, let's see what happens. You know, because that was my reaction in 2009 when they finally won a championship. I was like, oh wow, okay, all right, cool, they won. And then when they actually won, I'm like, hell yeah, you know. Number eight, don't believe everything you hear. What I mean is that the Bronx doesn't always get the best reputation, right? But you will be very surprised by the difference of what the Bronx is versus what you hear. That is if you come there once in a while. The whole borough is on his way up and it's just exciting. The Bronx is really exciting. Number nine, keep it hush hush. That's because seriously, no one wants the Bronx turning into another Williamsburg. If you never saw the list, it could be bad. Pretty much what they're saying. And then number 10, the Bronx School of Hard Knocks can't be beat. Education is invaluable, but so are some good old fashioned street smarts. In the Bronx, you're not only gaining the street smarts and common sense, but you're also learning to mingle with literally everybody. And then number 11, what's on their mind? No one in the Bronx will ever get tired of explaining what's on their mind, pretty much. Opinions are the native language there. They're strong about it and they're loud about it, and you never have to wonder where their stands in the Bronx. Number 12 is there's no place like home. So no matter where you go or how far it is, you will always be most proud of your present day spent in the Bronx. And that's just a fact. When you're from the Bronx, you can always come home, pretty much. Okay, you don't need to check in like that. Number 13, you will probably never be from the Bronx. Okay, you're not Jenny. You're not from the block, unless you were born or even raised there. Then you live in the Bronx. Then you can be proud of, and you can know the difference. Okay. Number 14, believe it or not, it's a friendliest borough. So obviously this depends on who you run into. But overall, people in the Bronx are less apprehensive than they are in other boroughs. And in the Bronx, you will know your neighbors. And that doesn't mean that you always like all of them, but you will know your neighbors. You will know who you're surrounded with. Number 15, half of 30, the Boogie Down Forever. The Bronx has a nickname, is the Boogie Down Bronx. Pretty much. And the Boogie Down Forever, which it means is the birthplace of hip hop, from the Grandmaster Flash, Sugar Hill Gang. They pay respect to these pioneers. They paved the wave. Okay. Number 16, breakdancing, as I mentioned earlier, is still the boss, and you will still see that if you in the Bronx. You will still see that. Okay. Number 17, it's just not the bleachers creatures that get loud. So pretty much here is the Bronx will probably register as the city with the highest decibel levels in the world. Everything is loud from the people to the streets. Everyone here just, they get used to it. Now, number 18. Yes, that is a street named Stickball. In any local parts in the Bronx, besides the basketball and people socializing in the park. Um, Actually, they didn't mention this. There's two sports that are very no famous for. You got the stickball, which is like a stick, which could be like a broomstick, and then you got that blue handball. And then handball is where you use your bare hands and you smack the handball. That's what you're gonna see the most in the park as well. And it's very fun. Stickball and handball are very, very, very active sport, and it's very entertaining to watch people play. Like you'd be surprised how good they are. Um, then you got so number 18 is the stickball, number 19 is the handball. 20, the Pelham Parkway, which is the Rockefeller Center. Okay, that's a place where people come around the holidays, and they go and see this giant tree, from Home Alone, pretty much. And you know it's during the holiday, you get that Christmas feeling. You get the holiday feelings when you go visit there. And then you got the Christmas lights, which is like legit there, and and then the Rockefeller Center building as well. And then the ice skating rings too. The ice skating too is very, very nice. Number 22, pizza. If you're looking for some good pizza, the Bronx has it. Okay, because it has a reputation for the best pizza. All right, and there's pizzas like John and Joe's Pizzas, on Lydic Avenue. Then you have, what else did you got? Like pretty much that's the only pizza there. But every pizza shop that you go there is good. All right, is really good. Number 23, New England and BX. So how can I say it? What it like um New York, the state of New York, like all the East Coast, area, that was called the New England. England. So New England and BX. The outsiders are usually amazed that the Bronx has their own island, and even more amazed at how awesome it is. And let me tell you, I forgot to mention this, but City Island, there's a neighborhood called City Island. It's very popular during the summer. When you enter to that neighborhood, it's pretty much it's like it's a fishing village, with seafood restaurant from left and right. Like you go and you can walk, there's places that you can go and take pictures. There's some historical events in there. Ceiling Island is also a best place as well in the Bronx. It's a fishing village from left to right, nothing but seafood restaurant. My favorite restaurant that I always used to go was Tony's. They got the best shrimp, French fries. It's, oh my God, it's just to die for. All right, all right. Number 24. Yeah, Little Italy isn't what it used to be, because during the 60s, 70s, 80s, it was just mainly Italian. But now, coming up from the 90s and to present, it's just a mix. People, these Italian men will tell you, it's still, it's still considered as Little Italy with all the authentic Italian, bakery, restaurant, and even the festivals as well that they perform. But it's just mixed there. A lot of people in different culture likes to live there. So number 25, bodegas for everything. let's just say, let's just put let's let okay, let's just put it this way. Picture Walmart in a corner store. That's what bodega, is for everything. In a bodega store, you will find anything and everything in there. You know, 26, the Bronx Zoo. Is the hype is to go for. Number 27, it is greener than Kermit the Frog. Okay, so just because this is the Bronx, it doesn't mean it's all concrete. If you take a trip to Pelham Parkway, which is which is bigger than Central Park, or the Van Cortlandt Park, the Bronx Park, the Botanical Garden, and even the Bronx, Equestrian Center. That's all green. So it's just not concrete. It's greener than the Kermit the Frog. Number 28, the Edgar Allan Poe, that lived there. So once again, please go visit his cottage for yourself. Number 29, how to cool off. Summer gets hot as well, you know, and instead of going to the beach or, taking a dip in the swimming pool, there you got these fire hydrants, they call it the Johnny Pumps, for old school, which you can go anywhere in the neighborhood of the Bronx, and you will see that fire hydrant just be open, because kids, people, even people be going there just to hand car wash their car, or like bumping the music, or or they're driving slow, so the kids can just spray them with, spray the water to them. It is a how can I call it? It's a fun experience, for childhood, mainly for childhood. And then number 30, in the end, it's still not Staten Island. So people make jokes about the Bronx. People talk mad negatively about the Bronx, and it's okay. Haters is gonna hate, but don't forget about Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Queens. Okay, this, if it wasn't for the Bronx, there will be no umbrella of understanding that no matter how bad it gets, it's not Staten Island. Okay, so, and the reason that I say that is because it's Staten Island. Damn, I'm just gonna say it is. It gets hot over there too, and the type of activities that they do there is not similar to what the Bronx go for. So there you have it. This is the Bronx. This is where I'm from, and no matter where I go, no matter who come across, if they ask me who I am, where I'm from, I'll tell them I'm from the Bronx, and I'm proud to be from the Bronx because it shaped me to how to survive. If I made it there, I can make it anywhere. Okay, but for those who never been to the Bronx and heard about it but never got the chance to, just do your research, do your own research, and research the safest place for you to go to the Bronx. You can go anywhere in the New York City that is safe for you to go and visit. Okay, just keep in mind that you know it doesn't matter where you go. There's always going to be some bad areas with high crimes and poverty. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoy this second episode of me talking about the Bronx and my experience in my childhood in the Bronx. Okay, this is the James Suniga podcast. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.